What's going on, everybody? It's Trevor with Class G Heroes. Wanted to make a quick video today about the Air Force Officer Qualifying Test, or AFOQT for short. Basically my advice, tips, how to prepare, how to take the test based off my prior experience with the AFOQT and how important this test is if you want to become an officer in the United States Air Force. So first things first, a little background with my experience with it. I took the AFOQT back in October of 2020. I passed, and I'm currently waiting for the rated board in June of 2021 to try and get a pilot slot. So wish me luck there. But basically, I wanted to make this as a way to let other people know who are trying to get into the Air Force and become an officer that this is really the very first step in your journey to become an Air Force officer. And it is very important that you put the time and effort into this test to be able to do your best. So my number one piece of advice for the AFOQT, and if you take nothing else away from this video, know that you have to get a study guide for the AFOQT. It is absolutely critical. I bought this study guide on Amazon. It was about 20 bucks. Great study guide. However, when I took it out of the packaging, I was like, why is there a Navy plane on the front of the Air Force Officer Qualifying Test study guide? But it wasn't that big of a deal. It didn't take anything away from the quality of this study guide. I will put the description of this particular study guide in the description below, because that is a really good one. It breaks down all of the subtests of the AFOQT. There's 12 of them into chapters, and it kind of gives you a way to study for it, and then it gives you practice tests for each subtest within the AFOQT. So it was a very good study guide. I highly recommend it. And like I said, I'll put the description of it below. So it's so very important that you properly study for the AFOQT. I would recommend getting a study guide and starting to prepare and study, 4 to 6 months out before you take it. If being an officer in the Air Force is something that you truly want to do and that you're serious about this, you need to put in the time and effort to make sure you can do your best, because you're only allowed to take the AFOQT twice in your entire life. After the first time you take it, if you find that, you didn't do very good, or you want to try and do better on scores, you have to wait 6 months before you can take it again. So if you're preparing for a board that's in 4 months and you take the AFOQT, you don't do good, well, you're not going to be able to have your best scores for this upcoming board, and you'll probably have to wait for the next one. So it's important that you study, put in the hours, put in the time to do good the first time, because also another thing with the scoring aspect, they don't take whatever you get the best, they don't take your best score, it's your most recent score. So say you did a decent on your first one, but you think, I want to try and beat it, and you take it again. If you end up doing worse, that is your score forever. It doesn't take the better of the two, it is your most recent score. And that's why it's really important that if you can knock it out of the ballpark on your first attempt, it is crucial that you do it, so you don't have to, worry about possibly messing up the second time and then being stuck with a bad score for your whole career, basically. All right, so within the AFOQT, the 12 subtests are, and I have them written down because there's a lot of them and I don't have them all memorized. It was verbal analogies, arithmetic reasoning, word knowledge, math knowledge, reading comprehension, situational judgment, physical science, table reading, instrument comprehension, block counting, aviation information. And then the last section is a self-description inventory test. It's about 240 questions they give you a question like, I like listening to really loud rock music. And then you either say you strongly agree, strongly disagree, or neutral. So like 1 being strongly disagree, 5 being strongly agree, 3 being neutral. And you basically just grade out how you feel about the statement that they just said or question. And it's basically just them getting to know you, your personality type, your leadership type. You have 240 some odd questions of those, and you only have 45 minutes to do it. So you got to hustle through that too. You can't sit there and kind of think, what do they want to hear? It's basically you just need to answer these truthfully to get through it, because you can't really lollygag on it. You gotta hustle and get through this test. That's another thing that makes the AFOQT really difficult. The content of the test itself, I wouldn't say is extremely hard, but the time constraints that are put on each subtest make it a very stressful and, very mind-boggling task, because you constantly just got to be going. You cannot stop and spend too much time on one individual question, because the Air Force wants to see how you think on your feet. Can you think quick? Can you problem solve fast? And that is in essence, the idea behind the AFOQT is see how knowledgeable you are and if you can do it in a timely manner. So for instance, the math knowledge section, which basically gives you math problems of all different kinds. They can be anything from factoring polynomials to just long division. So it's a big variety of math. But for that section, you have 25 questions, but you only have 22 minutes to do it. So you're looking at, less than a minute per question, and you have to be just, go. You can't sit there and contemplate on it. You just have to do it, fill it in, move to the next one. It is also very important when it comes to the scoring of the AFOQT that you do not leave any questions blank. The AFOQT is scored on a curve. So basically, you take the test and they stack you up against how many questions you got right compared to other people who took the test that day. So getting wrong questions doesn't count against you, but leaving questions blank does. So it is important that when you're getting down to the end of that test, and the test proctor will be like, okay, there's 5 minutes left, 1 minute left, 30 seconds, 10 seconds, pencils down. So when you get to that probably like 30-second mark, if you still have a lot of questions that aren't filled in yet, start filling them in, because you do not want to leave any of them blank. Even if you just make educated guesses on all of them, that is better than leaving them blank, because getting questions wrong doesn't subtract from your grade, but leaving them empty does. So that is a very important thing to remember when you're taking these tests and you're getting down to, crunch time for each of the individual subtests, is do not leave any blank. And once you get a study guide, it'll break down all of the subtests, kind of like what I just did with the math knowledge. I'm not going to sit here and go through every single subtest. With this video would be 45 minutes long, because it is a big test. But I will say for you right now, I've seen other people talk about how long the AFOQT was. Oh, it's like 3.5 hours. No, it's this. No, it's this. It is a 5-hour long test, and you will be at MEPS from 5 in the morning till whenever the test starts. You get a 15-minute break halfway through the test, and you will be at MEPS until 1, 2 in the afternoon. It is a long day. You'll come out of that test exhausted, both mentally, physically. It is important that you get a good night's sleep the night before. Have a good breakfast, something that's going to give you energy throughout this day, because it's a long day, and by the end of it, you're going to come out of that testing facility and your brain is just going to be mush, and you're going to be like, oh my goodness, that was crazy. But it's important that you go into it knowing these things, so you're not blindsided by, oh, I thought it was this, and just add another level of stress to the test. So just knowing up front, hey, this is going to be a long day. It's a 5-hour long test. It's very SAT-like. For those, if you've taken the SAT, and obviously you have to, because to be an officer in the Air Force, you have to have a bachelor's degree. So we've all taken those, standardized tests, and it's like that, but on steroids. It's to another level of, stressfulness because of the time limits per each test category. Another aspect that made the AFOQT hard, I know I'm just adding on, it's hard because of this, it's hard because of this, it's hard because of this. For the math sections, you have 2 of them. You have arithmetic reasoning and you have math knowledge. Arithmetic reasoning is word problems and taking a bunch of information, bringing them all together, solving for whatever they ask you to solve for. Math knowledge is basically just doing a math problem. They give you a formula sheet. They don't have what the formula is written on it. It's just a huge sheet of formulas. So it's helpful if you know what the formulas are and how to use them. That's big. However, on the AFOQT, you cannot use a calculator. So you're doing everything freehand. So if it's been a long time since you've done long division on paper, start practicing, because that is big. And that was one of the things that it's tough to not have a calculator, you know. Using that through school, through college, you get dependent on the calculator, whereas they want to see if you can do this stuff, you know, on the fly, because, you know, sometimes you might be in a situation where you don't have a calculator and people's lives are on the line and you have to make some calculations, and they want to see that you can do it and you can do it right. So just remember that going into it. No calculator, start working on your math, and give yourself the best opportunity to be successful. All the sections of the AFOQT are multiple choice questions with 5 possible answers. So it's a little bit more difficult when you have to go to when you get to the part of the test where you got to start filling stuff in, make educated guesses, because you only have a 20% chance of getting it right, rather than, like, you know, a 1 in 3 or a 1 in 4 is 5 possible. So there's a lot of different possibilities. So you just got to make sure that you are, above all else, filling them in when you get down to that crunch time of the test, when you only have seconds left and you still have 10 questions. Just fill them in. Do not leave any blank. It's very important that you fill them all in, so you're giving yourself the best opportunity to not get your score subtracted from. Okay, and my last piece of advice for, you know, once you get your study guide and you're going through it and you're working through the test, make sure you time yourself to the specific time limits for each test. And this study guide in particular had a full AFOQT practice test in the back. And so I did a full AFOQT practice test before I went in there, and it was 5 hours long. But that was big for me because it gave me, you know, experience with it and being able to get ready. So whenever you're going through it and you're at the reading comprehension section, make sure when you're taking that reading comprehension practice test that you are timing yourself as well to the specific time limit. So then you're better prepared and you can try and, like, starting to beat those times. You know, it's kind of like, you know, running a race, you know, your mile time. You start off, you're slow, you know, and if you keep on it and keep working at it, you can start to cut those seconds off and get quicker at it and quicker at doing it. And that's why it's important to practice with the time limits. Don't just roll in here, you know, doing the math problems and forget to time yourself. And you're like, oh, well, this math isn't that hard. I'm working through it. And then you realize, oh, well, it just took me 35 minutes to do those 25 questions when I have to do them in 22 minutes. So very important to, right off the bat, start with timing yourself for each subtest. So yeah, I hope you guys found this video helpful. Go out, get your study guide, start studying, get a hold of your local Air Force officer recruiter and get that test scheduled. There's a lot of stuff you have to do, preliminary stuff. You have to get transcripts, all kinds of stuff to your recruiter. So if you can get that whole process started early, the better. Get studying as soon as you can. If you know this is something you want to do, give yourself the best opportunity to do great on this test and to become an officer in the Air Force. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, give it a thumbs up, and have a good day. Thank you.